Well, guess where we are today? We're at the Deer Creek Catch Pen Loop Trailhead in the Mount Charleston Wilderness outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I didn't think I'd still be here at this altitude on the second week of October, but it's predicted 96 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley today, which gives me one more day to streamline the route to Mummy's chin and forehead and potentially reach those summits. Last time I pushed it up to within a half mile and 1,000 feet. That's a pretty steep incline. Within a half mile and 1,000 feet of the summit of Mummy's chin. So today, hopefully, is the day. And you'll see the most streamlined route in this video, no matter how far I get. So here we go. Now I'm going to attempt to abbreviate this video today and just show the transition points on the ground that I've already covered. So here we crossed Deer Creek Road. Now we're on Forest Road 092, and this road will split in a while, but what we're going to do is, first of all, we hug the eastern ridge of 7 Mile Canyon, which we are in, and we avoid all the different choices that are in this direction, and we continue to hug the ridge. We're going to look for the point where this road splits, and that's where we're going to find a really nice approach gully to the summit of this ridge. So let's see how that all works out. Okay, here we are approaching the split in the road I was talking about a moment ago. It's only about 500 feet up from Deer Creek Road, and Forest Road 092 heads off to the right toward the western ridge of the canyon. Forest Road 092A heads up along the base of the eastern ridge. But what we want to do now is angle to the left, poke around, and look for an awesome gradual approach gully to the summit of this ridge. Okay, after a little weaving around, here is the gully, and it's an awesome gradual gully. And just to look around what we've just passed, yeah, you can't see the gully below. You're weaving around all this forest, fallen trees, but eventually just trust the gully is here, and when you find this, you've reached it. Now let's go ahead and get to the top of the gully. Okay, you can see now the gully is petering out. At this point, you want to angle to the right, and that's going to take you up to the summit of the eastern ridgeline, where you can follow that ridgeline toward Mummy's Nose. You'll see when we top the ridgeline up here. And by the way, notice how this gully remained pretty much wide open, nice gradual, though steep. And then you can look down and see the valley way below. Okay, continuing upward. Okay, we've topped the eastern ridgeline. There are a series of high points on this ridgeline, and we're on the third high point where you really get a good view around. What I'm going to do is show the major landmarks around us that is my GPS given a clear day. And so, yeah, here's Mummy's Nose. And here is the Summit Approach Gully we're going to be shooting for. Mummy's Forehead Summit Approach Gully. Here is the summit of Mummy Mountain, 11,000 and roughly 520 feet. There's Mummy's knees and then Mummy's toe. Really windy here. I hope the sound's coming through okay. There's Bristlecone Pine Ridge, and behind it is Fletcher Peak. In front of it is Cougar Ridge, which leads upward to Mummy Springs. And then we have the La Madre Mountains. And that shiny lake down there may be Lake Las Vegas or Lake Mead. I'm not sure which. And then Angel Peak. Here's the eastern ridge line of 7 Mile Canyon that we've been on, heading downward. And right before that high hill there, right in the center, you're going to angle left and end up back at going down that gully, that nice approach gully to the Catch Pen Loop Trailhead on Deer Creek Road. Here, by the way, is that pointy mountain is Gas Peak at the summit of, above the summit of Decatur Road and the Clark County Gun Range, the north end of the Las Vegas Valley. And then you have the Sheep Range and the Highway 95 corridor toward Reno. As I mentioned, we're on the eastern ridge line. There is a western ridge line of 7 Mile Canyon. That's just across the way here. 7 Mile Canyon below. And then on up to Mummy's Nose. And now our path from here is that we're going to head for the next landmark, which is a limestone pillar on the ridgeline. When we hit that pillar, we continue to ascend the ridgeline another 200 feet, and then we hit the perfect glide path as we angle left along the base of the eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose, down into the Summit Approach Gully, and that's about a 9,400 foot elevation glide path. Works really nice. And we take a right in the Mummy's Forehead Summit Approach Gully and head up toward Mummy's Chin and Mummy's Forehead. So there you have it. Okay, here we are at the limestone pillar. Pretty obvious marker if you've stayed on the eastern ridge line. Now you can see to the left of the limestone pillar there is Mummy's Nose. So you can pretty much navigate by the sights here. I wouldn't do this on a cloudy day, but on a clear day you can navigate by the sights. Now I'm at approximately 9,200 feet. We want to continue ascending this ridge to an elevation of 9,400 feet. That's another, I don't know, 500 linear feet to get up there. Anyway, that's where we're going to start angling to the left along the cliffs, the eastern cliffs of Mummy's Nose. Okay, we've ascended this ridgeline 200 feet above the limestone pillar. And now this is what it looks like up here. There's actually a log. Look for this log. And if it's here, look for a cairn. That's the 9,400 foot level. This is where you begin to angle off to the left, and this is going to be the pretty much the perfect glide path along the eastern or left base of the Mummy's Nose cliffs above. And yeah, just pick out the best route that you can find along the way and try to stay right around 9,400 feet elevation, and you will land on the Mummy's Forehead Summit Approach Gully at that point without running into any cliffs on your right. If you went lower, you'd run into some limestone rocky areas and a lot more fallen trees and obstacles in the way. If you went higher, you'd be too high and the incline would just be way steeper. One of your legs would end up longer than the other by the time you got over to the Forehead Summit Approach Gully. So yeah, stick right around 9,400 feet elevation. Okay, time to check in. We are about midway along the base of Mummy's Nose Eastern Cliffs, which you can see above, and attempting to stay at the 9,400 foot elevation point. We've strayed a little high, so we need to descend just a little bit to keep on track. By the way, if your altimeter is different than mine, the main thing is when you reach that pillar marker on the eastern ridge line of 7 Mile Canyon, go 200 feet elevation above the pillar and then angle left. My altimeter may be a plus or minus 200 feet at this point, so just wanted to let you know so you can stay on path with your altimeter. Okay, let's continue along. Yeah, another thing to look at is there ahead on the right is we're approaching the edge of the Mummy's Nose Eastern Cliffs. You can see the main summit of Mummy to the left of that, and between the two is the gully we're looking for, the Mummy's Forehead Summit Approach Gully. And actually, that gully is way below us at this point. When we reach that gully, we should reach it at just about where my altimeter says 9,400 feet. So it's a perfect glide path along here, except as you can see there are a few little deviations you need to work out as you skirt the base of this Mummy's Nose Eastern Cliff area above us. So let's continue along now. And by the way, let's just get a 360-degree view as long as we're here. There's Mummy's Toe, Bristlecone Pine Ridge, and in the foreground, it's Cougar Ridge. And then over La Madre Mountains, Angel Peak, Deer Creek Road below us. So these are the landmarks you want to keep track. And then just complete the 360-degree view. and back to Mummy's Nose, Eastern Cliffs, and then our forward direction along at approximately 9,400 feet elevation on this ridgeline. Okay, remember how far that summit approach gully was below us. Here we are, we've reached the gully. There's my little cairn from last week. It'll probably be washed away by the time you're at this gully. But yeah, we have reached the gully at about the 9,400 foot level. So it was an even traverse across, although there were a number of obstacles to avoid. So let's see, how long did it take us? It only took a little less than 2 hours actually to get to this point. So not bad. And there now we're looking at what I believe is Mummy's Chin. So the goal is to get up to Mummy's chin. Mummy's forehead would be to the right. So now we descend into the gully at the cairn and then begin ascending the gully. What I'm going to do as soon as I get into the gully is, since I'm wearing shorts, I'm going to put some um, leg guards on because there's a lot of sharp bushes. They have little barbs, and if you don't have something protecting your legs, you're going to have death by 1,000 cuts. What we're going to do as we ascend this gully is there will be a few points where we need to angle to the right to get around, angle to the left to get around some obstacles, brush, and boulders in the gully. And then we ascend a slope on the right to get above a barrier dry wash that's in the gully. And I'll show you all those points. But the main thing is here we are at the Mummy's Forehead and Chin Summit Approach Gully, under 2 hours from Deer Creek Road. And by the way, one more feature of this route is that there is, well, it's all class 2. So, there's no rock climbing involved. And it's basically a walk the whole way. And in addition, you don't lose any altitude. So it's a steady uphill or even on the way up, and a steady downhill or even on the way back. So nice, streamlined route to Mummy's Chin and Forehead. And let's go ahead and do a 360-degree so that you can see around where we're headed and where we came from. There still visible is Angel Peak, and a little to the right, left and dim, is that sharp peak, Gas Peak. And then here's what the terrain has looked like at this level of altitude along the slope. Yeah, it's been somewhat challenging at points to circumvent barriers, but not bad. Nothing major. And then here you can see the Mummy's Nose Eastern Cliff Line. And then back to the Summit Approach Gully. one benefit of this cairn below is that on the return trip, it lets me know where I need to angle out of that gully and begin skirting the base of the Mummy's Nose cliff line on the way back. Okay, onward. Okay, about 9,600 feet in the gully. You see this slope to your right. If you continued in the gully, you'd end up at a barrier pour over. So you want to take the slope upward where you're going to bypass that barrier. And I'll see if I can insert a picture of the barrier from my last trip here. So yeah, potentially that is Mummy's Chin, or maybe it's beyond. We don't know. Might be beyond. And looking around, there's Mummy's Nose cliffs. And there's looking down the Summit Approach Gully. And yes, it has been very steep. And then looking over in this direction, looks like what could be a nice little slope up that way. I don't know where it ends. At some point, maybe I'll explore up there and see what's up there. Then here are some cliffs on the left side of the approach gully, and then back to the gully ahead and the slope we're about to climb to bypass the barrier. Okay, slight error. I headed up the slope too soon, ended up needlessly traversing this very steep area. Oh my gosh. Only to end up back in the gully below the barrier, which is up there. So now continue along up the slope. I need to circle around the right side of this rock formation and then land above the barrier. But yeah, there is the barrier ahead. It's a dry fall that you are not going to be able to climb over. And it doesn't look like these cliffs are that easy either. So yeah, what you need to do is you need to head up the slope just before the limestone you see here, and where you see the gully narrowing and going around a corner. Around that corner is the barrier you cannot climb. So up we go. This slope, it would have been probably faster if I'd stayed in the gully longer. But, well, it just goes to show that sometimes, even though you've been in a spot, it can look different the next time. And look at this. Here are some gradual forested slopes on this side of the gully, which bear some future exploration. But for now, let's head up this slope and land above those limestone formations. Okay, here's a little hint for going up steep slopes like this. There's a little channel here that has larger stones in it, which create more traction when you're ascending. And So stick to this little channel. Eventually we'll be circling around above to the left and descending back again into the summit approach gully. But yeah, very steep slope. As you can see, there's the summit approach gully below, and it's just kind of a trudge getting up something like this, but the channel makes it a lot easier. It's more like climbing a steep staircase than it is a slippery, slidey, gravelly slope. Okay, onward and upward. And by the way, here is that limestone area we are circumventing. You can see it rising up when we get to the top of the limestone here, where it's no longer a wall. That's our signal to cut over to the left and circle around and get back down into the summit approach gully. Okay, I have circled around the left side of that rock formation. The dry fall barrier is immediately below us here, so we've bypassed it. This is a good marker tree, because when you see this tree when you're coming back down, that's the time to head to your left above the gully in order to miss that dry fall. And another sign, which is visible now but may not be visible when you're here, is the cairn I placed last week. There it is. That's where I landed in the gully above the dry fall, and where I need to turn out of the dry fall on the way back, taking a left to circumvent that dry fall. So I turn out of the gully and angle to the left on the way back. And so here you see the gully continuing to ascend above us, and we'll get to the point where we were last week, maybe an hour and a half earlier. And that point was only about a half mile from the summit. So that gives us enough time to potentially make the summit of Mummy's Chin. So let's just see how it all bears out. And by the way, just to complete the 360, yeah, you can see some major cliffs here. There's the Mummy's Nose cliffs. This actually is the cliff leading up to, if you're on top of it, be leading up to Mummy's Forehead. And actually heading up this direction could be a shorter route to Mummy's Forehead, but we just don't know. So I'm going back into the gully and continue to ascend this gully. Okay, here we are at the 10,400 foot level, less than 1,000 feet from the summit. This is just a little above where we were last time at the turnaround point. But I've got about an hour and 15 minutes till turnaround. So I know that we're only about a half mile from the summit in length, and like I said, about 900 feet in elevation, 800 and 900 feet. And just to get an idea of the terrain here, yeah, we're talking pretty steep. Here's the gully I've been ascending. Wow, and that just goes down. Actually, this is only a couple hours from Deer Creek Road, no more than 2.5 hours. The return trip is very fast. And there you can see Angel Peak. See what else we can see. Here is Gas Peak. Then below it, you see a kind of triangular shaped formation. And it's just beyond Angel Peak and a little to the left. That is the Clark County Gun Range. And then looking below is the northern portion of the Las Vegas Valley. You're looking at Centennial Hills area. Beautiful, beautiful alpine wilderness up here. Look at the limestone. The bristlecone pines seemingly growing out of the cliff. I don't know how they do it, but they've got a better anchor than I do up here. And so let's continue on up and see where this leads. There's got to be some really steep portions. Maybe we're looking at no more than 800 feet elevation to Mummy's chin and forehead. And yet, and we're also looking at, like I mentioned, less than a half-mile distance. So do the math, the slant, the incline is just really steep. Loose rock, as you can see. Well, I should probably check in so you can see where I am. I've been doing a lateral across this slope from the gully, which would be in this direction straight ahead behind the tree, but a long way. Yeah, it's very steep here. And now we can see Mummy's nose below us. So yeah, we got to be closing in on 11,000 feet. The reason I can't tell you exactly is my altimeter watch dies at 10,000 and stops recording. But yeah, from the 10,000 foot point, I believe that we're closing in on 11,000 very rapidly. Here's a nice saddle ahead. And I do believe that this is Mummy's chin. But of course, I don't know for sure because I've been traveling around here just by gut feeling. But wow, all I can say is yes, we are very high. So let's get up to this ridge up ahead and just see what we can see. That will help determine where we are. Okay, here we are on the ridge. And you see some interesting things here. First of all, there's what I believe is Mummy's chin. Could be the forehead. I think it's the chin. But then we have another direction over here. This may be Mummy's main summit area. Not sure. I'll know when I look at a map later. Definitely don't want to go down this little chute. Wow. And look what we're seeing below us. There below us is the Lee Canyon ski area. And so this opens up a whole lot of reference points. There is Charleston Peak, and to the right, Lee Peak. And then over in this direction, McFarland Peak. And yeah, when I get a hold of a map, now that I've identified all of these locations, I'll be able to know where we are. Here is Max Peak. Over in this direction, McFarland Peak, and to the right is Bonanza Peak. And then further, Wheeler Peak. And then here's another look at either Mummy's forehead or nose. So, yeah, beautiful bristlecones here. Amazing alpine wilderness area. And then looking straight down, there is the traffic circle on Lee Canyon Road, which means that here is the South Sister. So, yeah, we've identified a lot of the reference points in this area that we're looking at, and we'll be able to determine exactly where we ended up today. Let's explore a little more around here, and then, oh boy, traversing this slope on the way back is definitely going to be the major challenge. Okay, from this higher perspective, I think I'm somewhere between Mummy's chin and Mummy's forehead. We don't know for certain, and I don't think we're going to find out today. But look at this. This is just incredible. There below are the La Madre Mountains. Far below, Angel Peak. Then over to the Las Vegas Valley. And you can see just to the right of that tree is Gas Peak. Having trouble keeping my balance here. It's not a very large area. Potentially the chin there. And then looking around in this direction. Yeah, Charleston Peak and Lee Peak. Charleston Peak on the left, Lee on the right. Lee Canyon below. I don't know, but that might be the Amargosa overlook I've been hearing about. John Foran, one of the viewers of videos, he has pointed out Amargosa Peak or overlook is just awesome. And then looking over in this direction, there's the Bonanza Trail. And there again, McFarland Peak, Bonanza Peak to the right, the forested peak, Wheeler Peak beyond. And then Max Peak over here. And the Sisters. Now you can see South and North Sister in the foreground. And then look down these dizzying heights, straight down. And then looking in this direction toward, let's see, toward Mummy's Forehead. And let's pan around again. Don't get up here very often. Who knows when the next time will be. But yeah, just to look around and see where we are. And I believe the main summit of Mummy Mountain, yeah, the main summit is over here to the right of Mummy's Chin. And then, yeah, here's the beautiful bristlecone pine forest I've been traversing. So there you have it. Now a poem comes to mind that I just have to read. This poem was written, I believe, by John Gillespie Maggie, September 3rd, 1941, a pilot. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the sky on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up, up, the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark nor eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind, I've tread the high, unsurpassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God. Wow, talk about taking a wrong turn. I turned too soon up the slope from the Mummy's Forehead Summit Approach Gully. And I kept going up and up and up until here we are at the saddle from Lee Canyon. Oh boy. So now the thing is to descend and end up on Lee Canyon Road and then over to Deer Creek Road. Wow, this is going to be a long circuit, but interesting where the connections are. So down we go to Lee Canyon Road.